hello, everyone. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your day today and joining us for our September webinar. My name is Corey Hesser, and I am one of the program developers at Kirkwood Corporate Training. Here with us today is Erik Dominguez. Erik is a communication and confidence expert with over 25 years of experience teaching thousands of individuals from all walks of life how to speak up for themselves. As an immigrant who grew up between two cultures and mixed messages, his firsthand familiarity with communication fears fueled him to learn and to share the mindsets and tools to be seen and heard. His team-oriented approach is centered around a philosophy of that everyone has a unique story. He believes everyone can share their minds and hearts with confidence, power, and yes, a lot of fun. And speaking of fun, Erik shared 3 fun facts about himself, so you are able to get to know him just a little bit better today. 1, Erik is featured in a documentary available on Netflix. 2, Erik is legally bound by the first rule of CrossFit, which is to tell everyone you do CrossFit. And finally, 3, Erik's great-grandfather, Fred Shields, is an original voice actor for Disney. He is most notably known for being the voice of Bambi's father. So very fun. Thanks for sharing those, Erik. Erik will also be presenting on Come Off Mute and Speak Up at our Fall Instructor Showcase, which is held on October 27th. So if you like what you hear from Erik today and want to see him present in person, you can join us for that event. Just contact us at Kirkwood Corporate Training for more information on how to register. So I say, let's go ahead and get to the bread and butter of why you all are joining us today. Erik, we are so excited that you are here with us, and I'm going to go ahead and hand it right on over to you.
Well, thank you so much. I actually have 3 additional fun facts. There may not be as fun because they relate to our time together. So the first one is that this is a shortened version of my keynote and workshop on building confidence. And even in 28 minutes, you are still going to get quite an experience in building confidence and tools that you can take for your team to do just that. There's a few other elements. Number 2 is I don't use slides. I do not use a PowerPoint presentation or Google Slides, not during a virtual meeting. And there's a lot of research in presentation and communication that supports this. When I start sharing my screen, I go from full screen to just this little itty bitty guy, and something happens to your brain that you detach and you become less engaged. However, I know that there are many visual learners out there. So in the chat, if you are looking to follow along, you are welcome to follow along with the slides that I do have, but I will not project. And finally, you're going to want to have something to write with and write on. It can be your computer, it can be a physical pen and paper as you desire, but I am going to have you journal for about 30 seconds to a minute a few times during this talk, because studies show that the average lifespan of a motivational speaker's impact is less than 12 minutes. That's because anybody, and I do mean anybody, can come up here and give you a rah speech. And I know because I am very energetic and hopefully will energize you for the rest of the day. But there's not always this domino effect of how the content is experienced. So part of the reason why I don't use slides in a virtual presentation and why I'm going to have you experience confidence, even if it's a little uncomfortable, is because the most important part of my talk isn't between 1:34 Central Time and 1:59 or 2 p.m. Central Time. The most important part of my talk is actually tomorrow morning. When you wake up, are you going to see yourself different? Are you going to see your habits differently? Are you going to approach your confidence in a different way? That is my primary intention for us. And I want to formally begin by just confessing something right off the bat. I am incredibly nervous right now. I'm incredibly nervous right now. We are not in the same physical room, but my heart is pounding just a little bit faster. You may not be able to see it just yet, but I can feel the beads of sweat forming on my forehead and head already. And I have this nervous energy. You can already tell I'm being cognizant of it. That makes me feel like I just want to jump out of my seat. Now, that's probably not what you were expecting to hear from a professional speaker, especially one that has been speaking for over 25 years. Why is this guy, if this is his job, if this is his profession? Why is he nervous doing what we expect him to do? There's three reasons why. Number one, biology. One of the side lessons I really want to land with you is don't believe anyone, including yourself, into thinking that you don't get nervous when you speak. You absolutely do. It is a biological reaction for us to see our words impacting our environment, especially in a high stakes situation. And we know that the way that we say something is going to impact our livelihood. So our body automatically goes into fight, flight, or freeze response. Now, if you're one of those people that says, nah, I don't get nervous, I feel completely comfortable, send me a message and I'll show you how you might be accenting or actualizing your nerves. Second reason why I'm nervous is because this matters. You matter. You matter to me, even though I can't see you, even though I don't know some of your names, even though we're not in the same space. I understand that building your confidence is creating a ripple effect that is creating transformation in the world. Now, that may seem a little bit like a cheesy cat poster, but I need to approach this situation as if you do matter. Because when you matter, I recognize that I'm here to serve. And the third reason why I'm nervous is just an old story. You know, we grow up with old stories in our head, and we grow up thinking and having coded in our minds certain pathways. As was mentioned, I'm not originally from the United States. I'm originally from Mexico. I was born in Mexico City and spent the first 8 years of my life there. And when my family moved to the United States right after my 8th birthday, I quickly realized that the way that I spoke had a direct impact in the way that other people perceived me. And even though I had some proficiency in English and I was fluent in Spanish, my English wasn't good enough for the English speakers, and my Spanish certainly wasn't good enough for the Spanish speakers. So I created this story in my head that in order to stay safe, I needed to stay silent. And I kept myself completely on mute, just constantly shutting myself down, shutting down my desires, my fears, shutting down any time that I wanted to speak up. And this came from a particular incident where we were doing some grammatical activity during 3rd grade, and I made some mistake, and the class kind of laughed at me, and I stood up for myself, literally stood up out of my chair. And I said, hey, I know my English isn't good now, but it's going to get gooder, which was not the best comeback you could ever say, especially to a group of 3rd graders. So that's when it all began. My gooder comment shut me down. And it wasn't until a random series of events that I started to learn the skills and learn the tools and efficacy behind using your voice to reclaim your confidence. And that's what we're going to talk about today is confidence. And what I would love to hear from you all is I would love to hear how you define confidence. And Ben, I see your link. I would love for you to drop in the chat. How do you define confidence? And while you're doing that, I will give a better, more appropriate link for the presentation at hand. But go ahead and drop it in the chat. How do you define confidence? Give me just one moment. How do you define confidence? Take a chance. I know you can drop in. How do you define confidence? I'm going to give it another 10 seconds. Here's the actual link to the slides. See no responses. I will share with you what I typically get. Oh, there we go. Thank you. Trusting in yourself. Feeling certain about my abilities. Oh, Tammy, you took the words right out of my mouth. Most of the time, someone will say something to the effect of certainty or guarantee. And my intention today is to shift that mindset. Confidence is not certainty. Confidence is not a guarantee. In fact, it's quite the opposite. When we are in high stress situations, I'm sure you've all been in a situation where you're very, very charged, you're very emotional, you're very scared about something that's about to happen, and a well-meaning colleague, friend, or family member says, just be confident. Now, that doesn't necessarily help because confidence isn't a choice. Courage is a choice. Courage is absolutely the choice that we get to make. And it is only by choosing courage repeatedly that we gain confidence. But I define confidence slightly different than others. And if you're following along with my slides, this is on slide number 3. Confidence is the courage to step into a big vision, the ability to embrace the unknown, and the commitment to see it through the end. Notice this: courage to step into a big vision, embracing the unknown, and commitment to see it through the end. Confidence does not mean that you don't have fear. In fact, it's quite the opposite. Confidence means that you are stepping into areas of your life where you are uncomfortable, where you don't feel 100% secure. And in order to gain confidence, this is the kind of the backwards thinking. To be confident in anything in your life, you must first be willing to not be confident in it at all. I have 2 objectively adorable, beautiful, kind, loving, smart little boys, ages 11. I have to pause because he just turned 11 this week, 11 and 8. And they understand that confidence is coming from something other than assurance. They understand that in order to step into learning something, they're going to be bad at it. So we've been trying Taekwondo and Jiu-Jitsu and tennis and swimming. And when they start to get that apprehensive feeling of, I don't want to do this because I don't think I'll be good, my direct comment to them is, you might not be good at it at first. But once you develop those skills, what happens when you develop a zone of genius, when you develop something that you're really passionate about and you make mistakes? It's how we live our lives in the workplace. You know, we all got the job that we got because there's some sort of a skill, something that aligned with our vision and the role that we're doing. There's something about our background, our knowledge that excites us about our role. But I'm clear, as hopefully you're clear, that we make mistakes. I've already made like 6 mistakes in just, the last 14 minutes, the slide link included. So what happens is we continually are walking through the day getting pinged and panged on what it means to be confident. And the way that I walk you through it is I walk you through confidence through 3 different lenses. The first one is ancient rhetoric. And I know you're all thinking, yes, I logged on because I was so excited to hear about ancient rhetoric. There is nothing in this world that I want to hear about much more than this. And you're welcome, first of all. Secondly, the reason why ancient rhetoric is important to our confidence is because the ancient rhetoricians identified that we communicate not just with the outside world, but with ourselves through our heads, through our hearts, and through our guts, meaning through our action center. So many of us are led by our minds, our logical thinking, our hearts, our emotional thinking, or our bodies, our action thinking. And what oftentimes happens is that we miscommunicate with ourselves the standard by which we see success. Related to that, the second lens that I use in my full session is emotional intelligence, particularly through the Enneagram. I just had a great conversation with a professional today who was trying to compare the Enneagram with StrengthsFinder. And I know StrengthsFinder, I've taken it, has a lot of great benefits. But the reason why I prefer the Enneagram is that it unlocks our greatest fears and desires. And again, I know you're probably thinking, yes, I logged in today because I wanted to explore my greatest fears and desires. Now, what happens when we explore our greatest fears and desires is we understand why we feel confident in something and why we don't feel confident in something. And then finally, I tell stories. And one of my favorite stories is in this keynote. That's what we're going to spend the majority of the rest of our time here. The year was 1999, and I was a college sophomore. I was double majoring in English rhetoric and communication studies. And being mainly responsible for my own education and financing my own education, I was very frugal and very strategic about the types of classes that I took. If you remember your college days, you had to take classes from list A and classes from list B and classes from list C, and you had to check the certain boxes. And I found the trifecta, except it wasn't the trifecta. And I'm fully aware that this is not a word, but I'm going to use it anyway. I found the quadrupefecta. And the quadrupefecta satisfied a requirement from list A, list B, list C, and my major. So I said, yes, this is the class I'm going to take, a 4-in-1 deal, jackpot. I went to my advisor. I said, this is the class I really want to take. My advisor said, fat chance, good luck. You're not going to get that class. Number one, your junior and senior counterparts get first dibs. Number two, this is by a beloved professor in our university. This class is too popular. You're not going to get it. So I decided to try anyway. I decided to try to wake up super early in the morning, like super ridiculously early in the morning for, a college student. It's like 9:30, 10 a.m. And I log on and I get to the registration page and I see 249 seats taken out of 75 available. Now, I'm not a math major, but I know enough math to be dangerous. And I know this doesn't add up. And the joke's on them because there's a glitch in the matrix. There's something wrong with the system where it's just letting everybody register for this class. And I think, haha, this is my way to take advantage of the situation. Yes, I'm fully aware it was shady. I was young. And I said, I'm going to register for the class. I'm going to print off the registration materials, and then I'm going to bring the registration materials to the first day of class and say, haha, I registered. You can't kick me out of this class. Except that the joke was totally on me. Because when I walked into the classroom, there was a classroom that sat about 75 to 100 people. And there were definitely close to 300 people in this small space. This was in late August in Tucson, Arizona, in a campus that hadn't updated their air conditioning systems in a long, long time. And 6 o'clock was when class started. And it was 6:10, 6:20, 6:30 came around, and there's no professor. And we're starting to get nervous. We're starting to get anxious. And suddenly, from outside of the hallway, we hear this booming, echoing voice. And in walks this unbelievably frail little man. Very, very frail. Looked like if you blew the wrong direction, it might break his legs. I want you to think of Mr. Burns from The Simpsons. That's who he was. And he walked in and he said, I know why you're here. You're here because C's get degrees. Well, I'm going to do one better for you. I'm going to make a deal with you. On this piece of paper is an assignment. It's a 5-page paper. You do a little reading, you do a little research, you do a little writing, and then you don't have to show up to class anymore. You don't have to show up to class. You don't have to post on message boards. You don't have to come to office hours. You will get a C in the class, and that's it. But if you want to learn how to connect with a human, if you want to learn how to communicate mind to mind, heart to heart with another individual, then I suggest you stay. And I thought the joke is definitely on this guy. Joke is definitely on this guy because No one's going to hear that inspirational speech and suddenly want to walk out, except the joke was absolutely on me because I immediately heard thump, and thump is the sound of many people rising at the same time. And I saw classmate after classmate take paper of mediocrity after paper of mediocrity after paper of mediocrity. And I remember him saying almost under his breath, there are no shortcuts to excellence. And then he turned around and he wrote T on the chalkboard. And yes, indeed, it was a chalkboard. And he said, in order to be confident, in order to connect with anything in your life, you need the 3 T's. And the first T is time. Now, in a full session, when I say that, the first response I typically get is, what time? What time do I have to invest in my confidence? That is the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. Have you seen my calendar? If you want time, you can meet with me next February, February 23rd between 1:07 and 1:08 p.m. Please and thank you. As working professionals, we are overwhelmed. We are constantly in this uphill battle of time. And there's 2 concepts that I want to teach you in regards to confidence and time. The first one is whirlwind. Whirlwind is the concept of the work behind the work. I'll give you a personal example. I need to finish my car registration because I'm getting a new car in the next few days. I need to go to the grocery store. I need to file certain papers from my business. I need to finish answering a few emails. Some of those things I don't love. I know how to do them, but they don't fire me up. I can do them, but it doesn't bring me a whole lot of joy. And I also recognize I have to do them because if I don't do them, there's going to be some sort of a consequence. And we also have the zone of genius. Zone of genius is the work that doesn't feel like work. The best way that I can describe the zone of genius is that this is where time passes by so quickly for you. What task do you get involved in that you could sit down and look up 3 hours later and realize you have just been working repeatedly on that? The problem in our modern day workplace is that we spend the majority of our time, energy, and resources in the whirlwind. And not only do we spend our time in the doing of the whirlwind, but we spend our time and energy complaining about the whirlwind. And we spend less time in our zone of genius, in the tasks that actually motivate us to be productive, engaged employees. And the trick here is to work at an 80-80 pacing. Now, this is ideal, but it is not always realistic immediately. If we spend 80% of our time in our zone of genius at 80% speed, number one, it's going to lift us, it's going to motivate us, and it's going to give us some really powerful confidence. And number two, the 80% speed is critical because I'm clear that when I go way too fast in my life, that I'm more prone to making mistakes and anything out of the ordinary. And I hope you're clear that every day, every week, we find something that's out of the ordinary. When those things happen, they don't impact me as much because I've allotted and budgeted for that extra time. So we practice confident pacing at 80 and 80. The second T is talent. Now, this is where it gets a little bit tricky. We all have talents, but as I mentioned before, as we walk into the modern day workplace and we make mistakes, and maybe we don't make intentional mistakes. Maybe it's details that we missed. Maybe it's something that our leader didn't properly communicate with us, but we don't always get it right. We don't always meet excellence. And I don't know about you, but anytime I make a mistake or anytime that I'm not in complete excellence, it feels terrible. It feels absolutely terrible. Even if I'm in a psychologically safe environment, even if I'm part of a really forgiving team and really understanding of how we take risks and how we build our confidence, I still feel not great when I make mistakes. So I gather the evidence all day long of why I'm not good enough. And one key takeaway that I really want you to get from this is that please stop calling it the imposter syndrome, because a syndrome implies a very small portion of the population, but over 80% of leaders experience this feeling of not being good enough. So the activity that I would walk you through and I would encourage you to do is to spend 1 minute, 1 full minute bragging about yourself, speaking highly about yourself to yourself. Now, this is an experience and it's a process, and I know that it is incredibly challenging, but I want you to consider this. Why are you so willing, so ready to speak highly of your best friends, of your colleagues, of your leaders, and you're not willing to do the same for yourself? And in the extended session, I make connections as to how you can do that to build not just your confidence, but confidence in the greater organization. And then the final T is tenacity. Y'all, I have a bone to pick, the major bone to pick. I don't know who to pick it to, so I'm just going to pick it with you. I would ask that you stop using the word resilient, especially as it relates to leaders. Those leaders who are categorized as resilient are also exhausted. Yes, they are meeting challenges, but they don't want to meet the challenges, the unexpected challenges that we've been meeting with for the last 3 years. And the very word resilience puts all of the energy and focus on the obstacle itself. However, tenacity has a different implication. Someone who is tenacious has big goals, has big vision, has a big path, and when they're on that path, they're clear that obstacles are going to come. So the energy is not around the obstacle, but it's around the actual leader. And a mindset shift that I would invite you to as it relates to your tenacity is that typical American culture operates under do, have, be. If I do the right things, I will have the right things, and I will finally be the way that I want to be. However, again, I'm clear that I make mistakes. And when I make mistakes, when I don't do the things that I want to do, it threatens what I have, and it also threatens who I be. So to build lasting confidence, it's important first and foremost to focus not on the things you do or can't do or won't do or can do or want to do, but what are the ways of being that fuel that doing? And in order to do that, we get to be responsible. And in the full session, I walk you through the 4 levels of responsibility, because after all, responsibility is your ability to respond. And that right there is confidence. The great author, psychiatrist, and Holocaust survivor, Viktor Frankl said it this way, that in between stimulus and response lies destiny. I cannot control the stimulus in my life, but I can control my response, and that is how I'm going to carve out my destiny. And one lasting thought, confidence, when you feel that sense of almost assurance, where you're able to walk into a situation, see the situation, and you know that you have the ability to respond, that's not a sign to get comfortable. It's actually a sign to continue. Because as you implement time, talent, tenacity, as you continue to level up your life, you're going to meet with more challenges to your confidence. And when you implement those strategies, your confidence, your results, your impact, they're going to get gooder and gooder and gooder and gooder. Thank you all so much for your time. I so appreciate you being here and discussing confidence with me, and I cannot wait to speak with you more.
All right. Thanks, Erik, so much for being with us today.